Welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving into a really fascinating essay by Feng. It introduces a mental model that starts with a frustratingly simple home repair. You know, the kind of annoying thing any homeowner can instantly relate to, and then scales that exact same logic all the way up to complex societal structures and ultimately even to spiritual enlightenment. It's a wild ride. We're going to see how this one single framework can actually apply to literally every layer of human existence.
So, let's set the scene. Imagine you're at the Lifechanyuan headquarters in Canada. You've got this stubborn cold storage door in a building made entirely of wood. And this door, it absolutely refuses to open or shut properly. It honestly feels like the ground beneath it is just rising up and physically blocking the way. I mean, we've all been there, right? Staring at some totally basic household problem that somehow defies all simple logic. Just standing there wondering how on earth you're going to fix it.
Now, the author's first instinct was to just brute force it. He actually got down on his hands and knees with a tool to physically grind and file down the floor bricks. And he did this multiple times. But what did all that backbreaking effort actually get him? Well, each filing only made the door maybe a tiny bit easier to open, but it was still super stiff and completely frustrating to use. Talk about a massive expenditure of energy for an almost microscopic return. He was literally at the point of calling in professional refrigeration experts to deal with the whole shebang.
Which brings us to Section 1, the stubborn cold storage door.
Okay, so then the author's son shows up, takes one look at this incredibly frustrating door situation, and heads straight down into the basement. And guess what? He discovers the real culprit isn't the floor bricks at all. The basement humidity is just way too high, and it's causing the wood underneath the tiles to swell up. So he lays out three possible paths. Path 1, just keep doing that exhausting surface-level work of filing the bricks. Path 2, rip up all the tiles and physically lower the wood boards, which, as you can guess, would be a huge, messy construction project. Or Path 3, fix the basement humidity. The son points out that only addressing the humidity is going to permanently stop that wood from swelling.
Naturally, they go with option 3. The author sends his son into town to just pick up a simple dehumidifier, and the results are actually kind of amazing. After running that little machine for just 24 hours, the door was already noticeably easier to move, and after 3 days, that stubborn cold storage door was opening and closing with absolute, perfect, effortless ease. No filing, no heavy construction, no expensive installation team required. Boom. Problem solved.
And that leads us right into Section 2, pulling out the firewood. This perfectly illustrates the core concept of our explainer today. There's this ancient Chinese proverb, Fu Di Chou Xin, and it basically translates to pulling out the firewood from under the cauldron. Think about it like this. If you've got a pot of water boiling over on the stove, you don't panic and try to frantically scoop out the boiling water with a spoon from the top, right? That's the equivalent of filing the floor bricks. The lowest cost, most effective path is to simply reach underneath that cauldron and pull out the firewood. You remove the heat, and the boiling just stops entirely on its own. It's the absolute, fundamental resolution of a root cause.
All right, let's move on to Section 3, solving life's complex problems. So the essay takes this exact same logic a huge step further. It asks, how often do we apply those exhausting surface-level fixes to massive, deep-rooted societal and personal issues? It points out that for thousands of years, humanity has been trying to solve really complex problems, like, say, marital difficulties, by layering on moral teachings, ethical constraints, and emotional lectures. But the problems are definitely still there, right? The author argues that all those things are essentially just filing down the floor bricks. Instead, the essay introduces these radical root cause fixes. It suggests we should just pull the firewood entirely. For example, the author states that the absolute lowest cost way to eliminate marital problems is to simply not get married at all.
To really drive this point home, Feng introduces a pretty striking perspective on human relationships. He says, "It is easy to have good relationships with everyone if we do not ask any favor from them." It's an incredibly pragmatic way of looking at social friction, isn't it? If you completely remove the expectation, if you just stop asking for favors, which is the firewood in this analogy, the social friction just evaporates. Zero expectations naturally equals zero friction. It's that simple.
He even grounds this in a real-world economic example, using the Mao Tai wine metaphor. Now, if you didn't know, Mao Tai is a very famous, highly sought-after luxury liquor. People seriously stress over its price, its scarcity, the whole social status of drinking it. But what's the author's root cause solution to all that stress? He simply says, I don't drink.
By making that one foundational choice, it completely ceases to matter to him whether a bottle costs $300 or $30,000. The cost of a luxury item, and all the stress that goes with it, literally only exists if you actively participate in consuming it. By choosing not to drink, he's pulling the firewood right out from under the entire luxury market's psychological hold on him.
Moving into Section 4, Fixing Organizations and Society.
Here's where the essay applies this relentless logic to some major life complaints, presenting them totally impartially as the ultimate paths of least resistance. We already talked about marital difficulties being solved by just not marrying. But what about feeling totally trapped in a restrictive civil servant job? Well, according to the author, the lowest cost path isn't to complain or try to somehow reform the whole bureaucracy. Nope, pull the firewood and start your own business. What if someone feels the United States is unsafe or just not a good place for them? The proposed solution is incredibly blunt. Just leave the United States. And finally, if a company or an entire society is struggling, the solution isn't to tweak the system, it's to completely replace the leader.
See, when an organization is really plagued with problems and the people inside it are struggling, the author argues that our default reactions usually completely miss the mark. Things like establishing a bunch of new regulations, relying heavily on expert opinions, or stepping up punishments. According to the essay, doing all that is the exact equivalent of frantically filing down those floor bricks while the basement is still actively flooded. You're expending massive amounts of societal energy without actually addressing the moisture that's making the floorboards swell in the first place. The overarching argument here is that the leader of an organization or a society is the absolute core guarantee of stability and happiness. Therefore, if that core is not functioning, the lowest cost path to fundamentally solve the problem is to just directly replace that leader. The essay argues that doing this transforms the entire system immediately, rather than layering on new rules or punishments that completely fail to address the root issue. It's basically the organizational equivalent of pulling the firewood out from under the cauldron.
Finally, we arrive at Section 5, the path to immortality.
So think about this. If pulling the firewood works for stuck doors, unhappy marriages, and failing nations, how in the world does it apply to immortal cultivation? What is the lowest cost path to becoming a celestial being?
Well, the author concludes that the ultimate firewood, the real root cause that's holding us back from spiritual enlightenment, is selfishness and ego attachment. Think about it for a second. All of our surface-level spiritual struggles, our daily frustrations, our earthly attachments, they're all just the boiling water overflowing from the pot. We can try to manage them with daily rituals, sure, but that's just scooping out the boiling water with a spoon. The essay argues that without completely, fundamentally removing your selfish desires and your ego entirely, the path to becoming a celestial being remains utterly unreachable. You just have to put out the fire.
As we wrap up this explainer today, I want to invite you to look at a recurring struggle in your own life. Are you spending all your precious energy down on your hands and knees, filing down the bricks every single day just to force a door open? Or are you willing to go down into the basement of that problem and find the actual source of the swelling? I'm going to leave you with this. Whatever your ultimate goal is right now, what is the actual firewood you need to pull to finally make it happen? Thanks so much for exploring this fascinating model with me today.